everybody. Happy Monday. I hope everyone survived the weekend. I know it has been absolutely bonkers crazy with all things Tree of Life and all things Reveal. And it's a rainy Monday here in St. Louis. I don't know about you guys. Wow. Okay, so that is a doorbell sound. That is our first. We've never actually had anyone ring the doorbell during a live show. So congratulations, you all are the first to hear it. Okay, it is Monday. It is raining, but it is time for us to have our monthly interview with our featured designer. Good morning, Melissa Feldhaus. How are you this morning? So our featured designer for Cotton Cuts, each month we feature a quilting pattern designer, someone who's doing cool and inspiring and inspirational things, and we feature them in our classic and our modern maker membership boxes. And so with those boxes, you get awesome fabric, you get awesome other things, you get some lanyard, you'll get some thread, you'll get some pencils, but we also give you guys a free pattern of your choice from that month's featured designer. And so rather than putting a pattern in there that you may never make, you may never want, you may never get to, we actually give you guys the choice of one of 5 patterns from that month's featured designer. And so here we have an opportunity to talk to this month's featured designer. This month's featured designer is Christa from Christa Quilts. So Christa has a fantastic journey and story to share with us. Good morning, Christa. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I cannot even begin to tell you how happy I am to talk to you today. I've been following like your fabric journey. Like that's so much fun to hear about. And I cannot wait to share that with everybody here this morning. All right. So Christa, you're in Vegas. That's home for you. Yes.
Yes. Fabulous Las Vegas. It's winter here when you have to put socks on, and we're not quite there yet. So in fact, later I'll be hopping in the pool, because we have like 2 seasons. We have like summer and not summer here, and it's still gorgeous right now.
Well, so it's funny. So it's November 4th, right, in St. Louis. And so you would think it's cold or it's fall, like the leaves are coming down. Oh, no, I have people showing up in t-shirt and shorts today. Like It is bonkers. It cannot decide what season it wants to be. All right. So Christa, my favorite first question is tell us about yourself. Give us all the behind the scenes stuff. How did you get onto this quilting journey bus?
Okay, so how many hours do we have? I'm just kidding. So I have been quilting for 30 years, which is crazy because I'm only like 32. So I'm just teasing. But anyway, I've just been quilting for a long time. The quick story of that is I was a newlywed. I was in college. I was studying business. My husband and I were in college together here in Las Vegas. Went to UNLV. And at the time, I always knew, like, I was always creative and crafty. And I also wanted to have my own business, but I had like tried all the crafts and I failed at all of them. So that's my first tip is like, try them all, fail at all of them. Like I tried ceramics and pottery and crochet and I just couldn't do any of them. And then on a whim, a friend of mine was actually making charity quilts and she invited me over. There was this group of ladies and they had brought together some pre-made tops and we sat around a frame and we tied them with yarn. This was the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my life. It was like the craft I didn't know that I needed because I grew up and my mom was always sewing, but she did like prom dresses and Halloween costumes. She wasn't a quilter, she was a sewer, and she tried to get me involved in like making clothing or 3D objects, as I call them. And I would not have it. I was not at all interested. But the tactile nature of the yarn and touching all the different fabrics was amazing. And it was love at first stitch. So this gal who had organized this charity sew, she invited me over later and she's like, I was young at the time, I was in my early 20s. And she's like, you should come over and I'll teach you how to make a quilted pillow. I said, that is fantastic. So she brought me over to her house. She taught me how to piece. I'd never heard that word before, piecing, machine quilting, this little pillow. And from the moment I did that, I was like, this has to be my life. And right away, about 2 seconds after I made my first pillow, I was like, how can I turn this into my business? How can I make this my job? And it took me about 10 to 15 years of really trying everything and throwing it at the wall to see what sticks. But it's been an amazing journey.
Okay, so I'm going to tear apart like a whole bunch of this because there were so many fantastic nuggets you dropped in there. Okay, So my mom as well was a clothing sewer and I wore many homemade garments as a child. And I, at that point, knew that was not what I wanted to do with my life. Like I was like, I am not doing homemade clothes ever again, which is why I started quilting really young as well. So tying it with like actual yarn. So you actually like old school.
Yeah. We had the frame and we had these big needles and we'd poke the yarn in and bring it up and we tie these little square knots. And the tactile nature, the imperfection of it, like the knots didn't all have to be perfect. You could put them wherever you wanted to, but just that the the texture of the yarn, the colors and the fabrics. And all I remember from the quilts that we were doing, they were just like a mishmash of just squares, but it just drew me in, and I just was hooked right away. It was amazing.
So do you think that is a fad, like a fad that could come back? Because you don't see very many tied quilts anymore. My first quilt was tied. The one I made with my mom was tied
Mhm.
with yarn. Why don't we do that anymore? Why do you
I'm,
think?
I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that with people that are doing like recycled projects or sustainable projects. I'm seeing a little bit more of that in the Modern Quilting Guild, where people are going back to the hand, where sometimes they're doing tying or they're doing really interesting things where they're maybe like machine quilting it to hold it together. Then they're adding hand stitching, and then they're adding like embellishments and stuff. So it all comes full circle eventually.
Yeah, I remember. So when I did made that first quilt with my mom, and I tied it with the yarn, and you know tie it in, you tie the knot, and you keep it going, and you go to the next junction, and it was so satisfying to like snip
It
in
was,
the
yeah.
middle and have the little tassels hanging off. That was like so much fun for my young childhood self. Okay, so you said you spent, and you just kind of glossed over it. You're like 10 to 15 years building your business. So talk to us about that gloss over. Give us more details about the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I always say it takes about 10 to 15 years to become an overnight success. So, like I said, I was in college at the time. I was newly married. I started having kids. And so I would quilt kind of in between kids. And then I got started professionally teaching. So, my mom, who was a big sewer, she ended up becoming my number one fan and my number one cheerleader. And she was my first student because she was always into sewing. And I said, Mom, I don't want to do clothes. Why don't you come make a quilt with me? So, I taught her how to make a quilt. And she happened to be in a local quilt shop one day, and the owner was looking for teachers, and she's like, she talked to my mom, do you know anybody that teaches quilting? She goes, oh, absolutely, I have the best teacher, it's my daughter. Well, I had like only been teaching like for a few weeks, but I didn't tell her that. And so she interviewed me, she had me come in, I gave her some ideas, and that's how my teaching started. And that was kind of the baseline. That's where everything springboarded from, was getting out there, because I was teaching ladies that, were in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and I was in my 20s, but they liked my energy, they liked my enthusiasm. They didn't intimidate me. Like, I never felt like, oh, these ladies are, older than me, like who am I to show them? I didn't know what I didn't know. And as long as I was like a step or two ahead, I was teaching them what I was teaching myself. And I was just breaking down the process. And I would teach piecing, and I would teach machine quilting, which is what I'm known for now on a domestic machine. And I would just teach them what I was teaching myself. And so it was very easygoing. I wasn't high stress. And that really resonated with my quilty ladies, as I called them. And so I just taught and taught for many, many years. And then once my children got old enough that they could be more self-sufficient, then I kind of took that show on the road and became a national instructor. So teaching, even though I do kind of everything in the industry, teaching is my first and true love.
Yes, and so I've come across so many of your teaching blogs. It's interesting because whenever I am looking for a new skill, or I'm looking for something, your blog has such fantastic SEO because
Thanks.
everyone is going to it, right? You put out such fantastic tutorials. I think I've even pinned some on our Pinterest page just because they're so well done. When you're coming up with like something, and it doesn't even have to be like a project. Like you have a fantastic design wall
Mhm.
blog and tutorial and video. Yes, right. I mean, there's so many things that you do well. It's very approachable, very easy to follow. And I think people like me gravitate towards it. I think it's part of the educational element that we get so focused on teaching how to make a project, we forget the ecosphere that surrounds that project. And I think that's, Christa, where I've seen a lot of your work pop up prominently in my feeds and my searches. Yes.
Well, I don't know. I feel very called to it. I feel like, oh my gosh, like, do people know how to do this stuff? Like, yeah, from making a design wall, that's my photography wall, that's my quilt, to quilt on a domestic machine, to how to put colors together and how to make really fun, doable projects and patterns. I love it so much that I truly believe, this is kind of cheesy, if we all became, piecers and quilters, there would be world peace, PIEC,
Yes.
because quilting is just the best language. It's the best thing. It brings everybody together. And I feel like if I can make at least one person happy and they can have a good day because quilting is fun and not stressful, then I'll feel like I've done my job.
All right, so tell us. So you mentioned you're a nationwide instructor. So what does that look like? How do you get into this like nationwide instructor? How do you get on the travel circuit?
Was when I wrote my first book. My first book came out in 2015, which just seems like so long ago. I've actually written 5 books, published dozens of patterns. And they're all the books, the patterns focus on making the whole quilt. Like I show you how to make the quilt in the pattern and how to do the machine quilting. Then the books focus mainly on machine quilting. Once I wrote my first book, I started getting calls out of the blue, quilting guilds and quilt shops and people that maybe had seen my blog, but they didn't know me. But once they saw that I had a book, somehow that kind of gives you that legit street cred.
Yeah.
So 2015, 2016 was the first time I went and I traveled nationally. And so I continue to do that. I'll teach at quilt shops. I'll teach at national quilting shows. I got to teach in Australia a few years ago at a quilting convention, which was amazing. And so, yeah, I don't really advertise. I just share on social media, hey, I'm going to be here at this place. Or sometimes I will share like behind the scenes while I'm teaching. And I just have guilds and shops. And I have more business than I know what to do with. And so I limit myself to about once a month. So I don't travel more than about once a month. The kids are all grown. They're out of the house now. This is my full-time job, but it's my favorite thing to do because I love having that one-on-one connection with the quilter.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And so, okay, so now you've started designing fabric. So tell us about that journey and how you made that twist.
You guys, you have to be open to the universe. This is what I say. So a few years ago, so I'd written my first book that led to becoming a Bernina ambassador. Then I wrote several more books. And then I had gone to this conference. I go to a lot of conferences, like business conferences and things like that. I love connecting with industry people. And there was this conference that was talking about getting started in business. I was already pretty established, but one of the tenets was about becoming a fabric designer. And I knew that was on my bucket list because I wanted to do all the things, teaching and patterns and books and fabric and just, next down the list. So I went to this conference and Tula Pink was there, Allison Glass was there, Pat Sloan was there, all these big names in the quilting industry, some of whom I had met and now many of whom are my friends. And I listened to them talk about their passion for fabric design. And I thought, you know what? I want to do this. So I literally had taken pictures. I share what I do on social media. And I said, I really think I want to be a fabric designer. This sounds fun. I'm going to give myself 5 years. I'm going to learn how to do it. So 2 days after I got home from the conference and I set out this 5-year plan, 2 days later, out of the blue, I get a phone call from Benertex, who, if you guys don't know it, Bernina, that's the company I'm an ambassador for. Bernina actually owns the fabric company Benertex. And they said, hey, we've been following you for a while on social media. We love your modern aesthetic. Would you be interested in becoming a fabric designer? And the first thing I said is yes. And the second thing I said is, I have no clue what to do. And they said, that's fine. We'll help you. We'll train you. So I was 4 years and 363 days ahead of schedule because I'd give myself 5 years and I had 2 days.
That's fantastic. Holy cow. So you just put yourself out there and you're like, sure, I'll figure it out. You just jumped right in.
That's who I am. Jump in the net will appear. I am very much a go-getter in life. I'm a very positive person, and I try to share this in my teaching and everything I do. Decide what you want to do. Decide what you want to do, and if you say yes, I'm a yes woman. I'm like yes, yes, yes. Say yes, and then you'll figure it out. Because I figured they were coming to me. I wasn't going to them. They want me. They will help me figure out what it is I need to know. Just like when I taught the first time and I only knew 2 weeks more worth of material more than my students, I figured it out as I went. So I'm very much an on the job kind of person, learn as I go.
All right. So tell us, so you're designing fabric, right? What is your biggest lesson learned from that? Obviously you're learning as you go, fire hydrant to the chest.
Yes.
What's your biggest lesson in fabric design?
So I just finished designing my 10th collection with Benertex that comes out next year. And in the very beginning, so I do maybe like 1 to 2 a year. I did all, like, I love bright saturated. You can kind of see this is a scrappy piece I'm working on from leftovers of like a bunch of different collections. I love very bright rainbow colors, just like the colors you have behind you. I love the rainbow. But in my first collection, I didn't include any backgrounds. Like you can kind of see this, the bright colors and the neutral backgrounds. I didn't include any lights. It was all brights, which it sold really well. People loved it. But now in my collections after that, I always need to make sure I have like, background colors, some lights or some grays or some tans, or the opposite, maybe some blacks or some darker colors. So you always need, my 30-second fabric or color theory is that take whatever fabrics you love and pair them up with a super, super light fabric to create contrast, or a super, super dark fabric. And no matter what fabrics you choose, it's going to work great. So my lesson was that I had to make sure I included a variety of values in my fabric collection so that people could work with them.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Holy cow. Okay, so you're a yes person. Anything that comes at you, you're going to do. All right, so tell us, what's next for you? Where does the future go for you?
Okay, so like I said, I'm traveling, I'm teaching. I'll be at Road to California teaching. I'm going to be in Virginia, the Mid Atlantic Quilt Festival teaching. I will be at QuiltCon, not teaching this year. I taught last year, or I will be there just visiting. So I'm going to be at all the major quilt shows coming up, or many of the major quilt shows coming up. But something I'm super excited about is something that has been on the back of my mind for 5 years. I have been doing YouTube videos and I haven't been consistent with it. So with the help of my kids, my adult college kids, they were home on summer break and they're going to come home for winter break. They're helping me create this video series based on one of my books. So one of my best-selling books is called 99 Machine Quilting Designs. It was book number 4 out of 5, and it's just a treasure trove of ideas. I have always wanted to create a YouTube series. So starting next year in January, I'm going to go through all 99 designs and I'm going to do a year-long series of videos showing how to stitch these out. So it's kind of like a private class with me, but it'll be free on YouTube. And the sad thing about the book is it sold very well. Then the publisher went out of business. So I purchased the rights back. So it's no longer in print, but I do have PDF copies that I sell. But anyway, so we're going to go through this whole video series. So whether people are really polished and they just want some ideas, or whether they're brand new to quilting, kicking off this 99 machine quilting designs next year, it's going to be a year long. And my kid, we've already filmed a bunch of it. They both of them are in art school. They've learned video editing, and so I hired both of my kids, and we're going to release it starting in January. So look out for that. It'll be a year long of machine quilting. I can't wait. It's going to be amazing.
Okay, so you've got me right. So I am right. So I've been quilting for a long time, right? And when it comes to the quilting of my finished quilt, I am a stitch in the ditch. Like that's how I learned. And yes, stitch in the ditch, and everything is straight, and everything is great. And I remember the first time I went like a 1/4 inch off the ditch, and I was like, oh my God, I'm breaking all the rules. This is terrifying to me on my home machine. I am going just a little bit off the ditch. Oh my gosh, the quilt police are going to come get me. Okay.
Not at all.
I know, right? So tell me, right? So I am intrigued by the 99 designs on your domestic sewing machine. So tell us, like for people like me who can do like, who are just so paranoid about messing up their quilts, give us the confidence to check you out.
I'm going to blow your mind. Number one, the easiest thing to do, instead of stitching in the ditch, stitch near the ditch. And what I mean by that, and this is my number one, first thing I always start off when I teach, I don't just teach free motion quilting. That's what it's like, ooh, jazzy free motion quilting. I teach walking foot quilting, and you can do amazing things with your walking foot. So instead of stitching in the ditch, stitch on top of the ditch or near the ditch. And instead of stitching a straight line, you stitch a wavy line. It's 10 times faster. It's 10 times easier. And you will not see if your stitches are perfect or not. So that is literally design number 1 that I teach. You stitch a wavy line. It's faster, it's easier, it's more carefree. And when I teach this online, I teach it in class, and people do this first design, it relaxes them, it blows them away, it gives them that instant win, that instant success, and then they have confidence, and then everything else is cake. So if you're stuck and you don't know what to do, don't stitch in the ditch, stitch near the ditch with a wavy line, and you'll just love it.
You've got me. Because that's one of those things like I'm an experienced quilter. I've been doing this for a long time. But when it comes to that finishing step, and I feel like we've gotten to the point where it's like, I'm just gonna have someone else do it. But if I've got a small baby quilt, like I don't want to get rid of that. I feel like I should be able to do that myself.
Yeah,
and then I stack them up.
Yeah, is when they come to my classes. I mean, I know we're going to talk about like pattern design, but like I said, machine quilting is my main love. When people come to my classes, first thing I say is you know what? If you walk out of class and you decide machine quilting is not for you, you have learned something, because it's just as important to find out what you don't like as it is what you do like. But most people, once they come to my class and I relax them and I tell them it's okay and they have a good time, they get over their hurdles, because it's really actually hard to stitch a straight line. Stitching a straight line is hard, but stitching a wavy, irregular, imperfect line is so much easier. And so once people get over that first hurdle, then they're fine. And so, like I said, I teach walking foot, I teach free motion, I talk about how you can combine them, I talk about edge to edge designs. And really the idea is that people get very intimidated with the machine quilting. And so what I like to do in my 5th book, it's called How Do I Quilt It? I talk about making a quilting plan. I talk about breaking it down. isolating your different elements. And again, it goes back to that teaching. When I started teaching, 25 something years ago, I just break it down. This is what makes sense to my brain. If I can explain it to you in a step-by-step manner, then you're going to have success. And I apply that to everything, not only my machine quilting, my fabric design, my pattern design. I really try to make things approachable and easy so that more people will want to quilt, because that's my goal. Get more people quilting and they're going to be happy.
All right, this is a great transition. Pattern design. So you were teaching technique. You went national instructor. You've been doing domestic machine. Talk to us about how pattern design has played into all of your adventures.
Well, the first thing I did is I started just submitting my work to magazines, because I do all these things, but I don't have a lot of the technical skills. I'm not very computer savvy. I don't know all the graphic design. So I knew that if I wanted to get started with pattern design, the easiest way to do that was to start with a magazine. So this is for anybody who's like a budding designer out there. Go to magazines first, because they have a whole team of people, and all magazines are different, on how much they want you to do. But you basically submit your design. I usually design in electric quilt software. You submit your design. They just, before you make the quilt, they decide yes, no, maybe change the colors. You come up with an idea. Then, depending on the magazine, they might just want a general overview, or they might want you to write the whole pattern, but they're going to have a style of how they want it to look. And again, it's on the job training. It's on the job training. They paid me for my design and they taught me how to write the pattern. And then when I had just done a little bit of magazine work. Then I did my first book, and my book taught me how to lay out and write patterns according to their guidelines, which I continue in my own patterns today. So really, not only am I a yes woman and I'll say yes to everything, I don't stress about something if I don't know, because I know there's always someone out there smarter than me that I can ask. And I can say, okay, you want me to do this magazine work for you. You want me to write this book for you. Show me your style. Teach me how to do it. If I'm doing it wrong, correct me, and then going forward. And so again, my whole full-time job has been on the job training, and I love it.
Well, that's fantastic, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to have this library of patterns. Like you have to have this, storied work in order to be featured in a magazine. That even to get to that point of applying for a magazine, you have to have all this work. But it sounds like you'd almost have to untangle all that work to be able to be published in the magazine, because they might have their own sense, their own flair, their own expectations.
I'll tell you the secret, really, just because I'm so excited, because I know there's going to be budding designers out there. You have to have two things. You have to have tenacity and the willingness to have a thick skin, because somebody's going to tell you no, and they're going to tell you no 10 times, and then the 11th person's going to say yes. So you have to have tenacity to keep going. And number two, meet your deadlines. If you submit an idea to a company, or you work with a company like you guys, Cotton Catch, you guys had deadlines. You said, we want to feature you, get us XYZ by ABC, and you do. So that's the second important thing. Meet your deadlines, and then you become a reliable person in the industry, because they're like, oh, Christa, she gets her work done on time. We have this deadline for this magazine. She gets her stuff in on time, and so we don't have to be late. You would be so surprised, this little industry insider, how many people don't meet their deadlines, and so they miss out on so many opportunities. So have tenacity, meet your deadlines. The world is your oyster.
I mean, that's really simple, right? So, like, my son's trying out for the basketball team. We're like, it doesn't matter your basketball skill as much as, are you hustling, and are you showing up on time, and are you being a good teammate, right? Are you showing up, and are you delivering what you expect? And then the industry loves you.
Exactly. And because everybody needs content. Everybody needs content. They're looking for people. Of course, you do need to know your skill. You can't show up for quilting and be like, how do I use the rosary cutter? How do I turn my sewing machine on? Like, you have to have the skill, but there's so many people that are skilled. What's going to set you apart? It's your personality, your tenacity, your work ethic. You're willing to meet your deadlines. And that's really been 99% of my success.
All right, so Christa, tell us, what is your pattern design aesthetic now? Now that you have all this experience and all these books and all this accreditation, what's your design aesthetic now?
I am, okay, this is a little bit of a complicated question, because this is a good example behind me. What I've just realized now that I've kind of been doing this full time for a while, there's two parts of my quilting. There is the commercial side, and then there's the artistic side. And what I mean by that is, the commercial side is things that are easily repeatable, repeating blocks, with a traditional base, so like make a log cabin block, repeat that, make 20 log cabin blocks, something that's very easy to pattern and very easy to instruct. But it's my personal style. I love bright, I love modern, I love geometric, I love abstract, that kind of thing. So that's the commercial work. most recently, I've been doing the artistic work. And so this piece behind me, this is not a pattern. This is actually the backside of a quilt that I just recently finished that I'm going to enter into a quilt show. And I've just recently been going back to my roots when I first started quilting. I wanted to not only make commercial quilts that I could sell and pattern and teach, I wanted to push the envelope and start making very creative work. That's what I call my runway quilt, where I will make this one quilt. I'm not going to pattern it. I'm not going to teach it. I'm going to use it as an inspiration to say, hey, here's what you can do with scrappy colors. Here's what you can do with circles and inset. Like people see this and like, oh, are you going to teach us how to do circles? No, other people do that. I don't teach it. I'm just doing it for myself. So between the balance of the patternable stuff that's very easy, my commercial work is I would say it's very beginner level. It's very easy for people to follow and have success with. But now I'm having fun exploring and pushing the boundaries of what I call experimental work. And so that's kind of a long answer, but for so long, the person, what they say, that the cobbler that has no shoes for their kids or the quilter that has no quilt on their bed. I've been making so many things so long for commercial viability that I'd gotten away from just fun exploration. And now this last year, I've gotten back to that. So it's really been fun, kind of
So is
balancing.
that something you see like in the crystal ball, in the like Krista's new 5-year plan, right? It seems like you always have this like 5-year plan that's realized in 2 days. I get, love, and appreciate that, right? So in your 5-year plan, you're going to do this video series. Then what comes next?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of in my mind is like this video series is going to give me a year full of content on my YouTube channel that we're going to have ready to go by the time we're getting it ready now. So by the time in January, I don't have to hustle to get those videos up. They'll be ready. So while that is going live, then behind the scenes, I can start working on more creative work, more experimental work that if it succeeds, I'll share about. If it doesn't, I probably won't. And so I can kind of have this idea where I'm working in real time, but I'm showing you stuff. Maybe, I'm showing you stuff that maybe I finished a couple months ago. Does that make sense? It's kind of like how magazines work and stuff, where I'm like working on stuff behind the scenes now. I'll show it to you in 2 to 3 months because I have to make sure it works. I have to make sure it's polished, professional, that kind of thing. But it's been fun to play.
Oh my gosh. And so you're still designing fabric. You're still teaching. You're doing 2 arms of pattern design now. Christa, you are an inspiration. Where do you get all this energy? Surely you drink lots of coffee.
I love chocolate, and that really no, I just my excitement comes from quilting because I've been quilting for 30 years and I feel like I've just scratched the surface. So I have to live till I'm at least 250 years old to make all the quilts I want to make. But quilting fills me up. It excites me, the color, the pattern, the talking to people. I just love it. And if I can just keep continuing to do this forever, I will be a happy woman indeed.
Oh my goodness. All right. So how can people find you, Christa? How can they learn about all the awesome things you're talking about?
Okay, if you go to my website, my blog at christaquilts.com, that's the springboard for, I have all my patterns listed from there, my YouTube channel. I do a lot on Instagram, Christa Quilts, you have up on the screen there. And just, people can contact me. I know a lot of people ask me like, oh, do you do a lot of Zoom? Do you do that kind of thing? I did film some craftsy classes back in the day. And then during the pandemic, I tried the whole online teaching. I realized that's not where I do best because I like an audience. Like I need to have somebody to talk to. So I do teach in person. But yeah, just find me on the website, Christa Quilts, Google me. If somebody's out there, it's like, oh my gosh, you need to come to like my guild or something. Send me an email. I will say yes, I will come. And then my kids have always been bugging me. Now that they're getting older, they're really into like anime and Asian and Japanese. And they're like, Mom, you need to get famous enough so like you can go to Japan and we can all come with you. So if there's anybody out there that wants to invite me to Japan, that's like on my bucket list.
Oh my goodness, that'd be awesome. That is fantastic. All right. So Christa, any other parting thoughts for us? This has been fascinating. I have learned so much about you. Holy cow.
Oh, thank you. I would just say, you guys, I know I can be a little over the top sometimes because I just love quilting and I'm so excited about it. But I would say no matter what you want to do in life, whether it's tackling that pattern or, trying a new idea, give yourself grace. Know that you're doing the best job you can right now. And if you need like a virtual hug from me, just reach out to me and I will tell you I'm a yes woman and I will say yes to you. You can do it. You just put your mind to it. You break it down. And no matter what it is in life, you can absolutely do it. Don't be the one standing in your own way. Give yourself permission to have a good time and enjoy each step of the process.
I agree. I think oftentimes we get consumed by it's an 800-pound gorilla, right? Like this is like a really big monster and we have to tackle it all at once versus it's okay. It's one bite at a time, right? celebrate the win, celebrate the win. And if you need to set it aside, that's okay, and come back to it. It's all just, everyone's on their own race. Nobody's racing against anyone else.
Exactly. And you know what they say? It's that traveling horse theory. Like you travel, you go by your quilt on a traveling horse. Who's going to see the mistakes? Only
Right.
you are. I heard one funny thing. Hopefully this won't be too controversial. I heard some ladies talking on a podcast. They said, there's too many quilt police out there. We need to defund the quilt police. I said, yes, that's something I can get behind.
Yes. I, I agree. I agree. I'm like, I'm a close enough quilter. Like if my block is 3.5 and it's like 3 3/8, I'm like, I'm okay with that. Like it doesn't need to be exactly 3.5. And I'm like, as long as it's loved and once it gets washed, forget about it. All those things go right out the window.
Yeah, I would just say, I'll leave you with this.
Mhm.
Just remember, your quilt does not have to be perfect to be functional and beautiful and wrap someone with love.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Christa, thank you so much for sharing that. Christa, it has been a joy and a pleasure having you on the show today. Guys, if you are joining us later, popping in and out, you have to catch up. Christa's story is fantastic and amazing. Christa is our featured designer for this month. And so as it's hot off the press, I have your card right in front of me here. Woo-hoo! So everyone who subscribes to our classic and our modern maker membership will receive a card from Christa with lots of fantastic bio and contact information. But the most important part here, I'm going to cover up the code, is you get a free pattern from Christa. And so these are the patterns that she has selected to feature in our box for this month. And so just by subscribing to the classic or the modern maker, you guys get a free pattern download. I'm looking at this, the sparkling stars, Christa. It gets to your point of like bright colors and neutrals. I'm really liking that. That one looks fun.
And it's
Modern market. I feel like I want them all. Like there's no wrong answer.
Each of those patterns that people pick, not only do they get the pattern, it gives machine quilting suggestions. And I never say quilt is desired. I always show you, here's one suggestion to how to actually finish your quilt if you want to make it look like mine.
That's fantastic. Okay, so Paula is standing behind. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm supposed to remind everybody that Christa will be hosting a social giveaway on her channel for your choice of a classic or modern maker box. So you guys have to find her, hit her up, and she will be hosting a giveaway if you want to get a free box, which is always fun. I mean, are you going to turn down free fabric in the mail, Christa?
Not at all. Fabric is amazing. If we were all quilters, I mean, that would solve all of our problems.
I mean, you're a yes person, right? Like sending me free fabric? Yes, I'm taking the free fabric. All right, Christa, thank you so much for your time this morning. I hope you have a fantastic fall, winter day in Vegas wearing socks.
Good chat with you guys. Thanks, everybody.
You got it. Bye, Christa. Bye, everyone. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you guys Thursday for our regular live. We have a fantastic topic up, and we will see you soon. Bye now. And cut. Thank you so much for watching our video. We have so much fun making these, and we hope that you were both delighted and inspired by what you just watched. This video was sponsored by Cotton Cuts. Cotton Cuts is your one stop for all the best fabric and thread memberships. Love fabric? We've got you covered. Love thread? We've got you covered. We get that no two quilters are cut from the same cloth, which is why our memberships are as unique as you. We also have the largest block of the month in the world. Over 4,000 detectives solve our puzzle mystery quilts every year, and you can join them. Simply go to cottoncuts.com to learn more about all the awesome and fun things that we're doing. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to make sure you get all of our new fresh content every time it comes out. Thank you so much. Happy sewing enthusiasts, and we will see you soon. Bye now.